This is another worrying sign that I think has some hopeful undertones to it. I want to share this article from this morning's news about another sting in Fairfax County. That's the county in which I was stung, right, by Detective Bauer. And the good news here is they didn't get as many people. And the better news, perhaps, is that people are getting the message. And if you are prone to doing something like this, maybe you will get help or you will pull back or something. But the even best news, I guess, if I want to go with the superlative here, is that police felt it necessary to mention the age bit. And let me share with you what I'm talking about here so it makes sense. Okay, so you see in this article coming up about now, in the greater Alexandria patch. And as you know, I have little use for the patch. It's basically a propaganda arm of the police when we're dealing with things like this. In their crime and safety section, 10 men arrested in undercover child exploitation sting in Fairfax, ranging from ages 21 to 64. Don't know why that's ever relevant to necessarily mention, but that's fine. And they're targeting online predators in this sting, seeking to meet children. Well, okay. They're targeting predators. You've heard me say that before. They don't know what these people are, and we don't know what police are doing. Let's get that out in the open right off the bat. We don't know what police said to these people, but we have a bit of a clue because they seem a little bit defensive. So you look down here, 6 day sting. So this is the good news, right? The 6 day sting arrested only 10 men. Okay, so maybe the message is getting out. I don't know. Okay, maybe the message is getting out. Operation Spring Bloom, okay, took place April 1 through 6, was conducted by the Fairfax Police Department's Child Exploitation Unit in cooperation with the Metropolitan Police Department, that's Washington, D.C., and the FBI. Notice how they don't say ICAC here. ICAC is getting a bad rep. So they have begun calling themselves Child Exploitation Unit. They used to call it Major Crimes Bureau. Okay, so they like to change that up, and you can leave it to your own imagination to determine why that is. Okay, detectives use various online platforms to pose as underage children to identify individuals seeking minors. Of course, we don't know what they did. We don't know what they said. We don't know who initiated the conversation, but we do know increasingly it's the police. We do know increasingly police pursue people who have indicated little interest. And yes, we also know that there are people who seek to find children. Okay. But we don't know what happened. And it's really important to notice that. Notice how, even though I've made my prejudice and my perspective very, very clear, based not only on personal belief, personal experience, and research, but I show the other side of it. Okay, that there are people who are willing to do this. But this bothers me. Here's the chief's ridiculous statement, right? Remember, chiefs of police are not just top cops, they are politicians for their department. This scares parents, no doubt about it, but our commitment to identifying these perpetrators, these predators, and I don't use that word lightly, of course you do, is something that we will continue to do to protect our children. Yeah, yeah, that's exactly. They don't even, these people haven't been charged with a crime, and you're already identifying them. I'm sorry, they haven't been adjudicated, and you're already identifying them as variously a perpetrator or a predator. Okay. And this scares parents. You know what scares parents? Telling them scary things. You know what would enrage parents? If you were showing what you do to get these guys. You don't just sit back on these sites and wait. You jump in and you start pretending to be adults and then switch it to parents. So my question for the chief, which they've never really answered, is why the bait and switch? All right, the other day I had to go up to the police station over here just as an aside, and we were talking about this. I mentioned this to the young man sitting in the information booth, and he looked at me with a kind of a jaundiced eye, and he said, "No, that doesn't happen." I said, "Listen, I've been studying this when you were still in middle school, so don't tell me this. You don't have any idea." And he just kind of stared at me. All right. These folks get brainwashed by their own uh, senior officers. And I'm just telling you, it doesn't always work. I'm still waiting for them to show all the children that they rescued. And the reason they won't show me that is because there are no children that they rescued. So there's no children in danger. And then we work backwards to figure out what were the police doing. In a democratic republic, folks, if police are running stings for our benefit as the public, and believe me, I would get totally out of their way if they were doing something where somebody was really harming a child. But because we have experience with this, we know that what they're claiming is not always true. So they go through the age again, the suspects range, and they face 22 criminal offenses, including 19 felony charges. Okay. And here's what's interesting. Captain Kevin White, assistant commander of the Violent Crime Division, so now we have a different name for the division going after them, were explicit about their age. Detectives were explicit about their age during online communications to ensure there was no misunderstanding. Boy, that seems real defensive. They were explicit about their age to ensure there was no misunderstanding. Really? Are we sure they were that explicit? At what point were they explicit? That's what we don't know. And what a strange thing for this. Who wrote this? Oh, yes, our buddy Michael O'Connell. What an interesting thing for Michael to put in here. Michael has received correspondence from me on two occasions and never really gone into it, but he may have asked that question. He may have probed a little bit, even though he never responded to my text message or rather my email. Hopefully he did. Or maybe the chief just decided, or the captain here just decided we would say, oh, well, we told them the age, which is what they always say. But it's when you told them, under what circumstances you told them. Were you role playing in a fantasy thing and then you went and arrested them? Is that what happened? Now, for those of you who say, well, you shouldn't be doing that, you shouldn't be role playing, I just want you to think of any time that you were in an intimate moment and you were role playing or you were using, let's just say, adult language in the heat of the moment and what came out of your face. And then tell me all about fantasy play. So then there's a couple little bit tidbits to wrap this up. Here are the so-called perpetrators who traveled across state lines too, so they're going to get traveling charges. And here's a little bit about them. But this is what I wanted to focus on. No bond. So it is customary in these cases to deny bond at least for the first time. Okay. We would have to look at these cases individually and see what happens. Okay. Two count solicitation of a minor and attempted indecent liberties. That's a new one that they've added. Now, I don't see here computer solicitation. I don't see that. So I would have to look at these cases individually, look them up, and see if that's what they end up being charged with. Solicitation of a minor for prostitution. Now, these are higher order felonies a lot of times. Held no bond, no bond, no bond. If you held no bond, it's not a misdemeanor in all likelihood, it's a felony. Released on a $20,000 secured bond. 20,000. Okay. I don't know why he was particularly special. Held in no bond, no bond, no bond, $1,000 bond. Okay. I don't know why he got $1,000 bond. Okay. And this other one was released on no or had no bond. Incidentally, the story I just did a minute ago about the nude dude, he has not been released. They're discussing his bond. What sort of a bond could that be necessarily, right? Because I'm sure what that means is that the police don't want to release him because they have their prize and they're worried about him being dangerous, and he could. But what they might end up doing is holding him for a psych evaluation pending any bond hearing. That might be what they end up doing. I don't know. But anyway, I wanted to share that news story for the moment with you as well. And just remember when you see these things, read between the lines. So to summarize, maybe we should be happy we had fewer people netted in the stings. Maybe it would be nice to know what police are doing in those stings too. Maybe we should understand that the no bond element here is the standard. They denied me bond the very first time. I'm like, what sort of danger am I? And one of the elements of whether they grant bond or not is, are you tied to the community? Do you have any, like, do you have family? Do you own a home? Do you work in the community? And that might be one of the reasons that they have denied bond as well. So, in any event, just to give you the news of the day,